What do you do with a bunch of violent, racist teenagers who hate everyone who isn't white and Christian? In California, a federal prosecutor decided the best way to deal with them was to sit them down with the people they hated most, blacks and Jews. Among those they met with was the minister of a black church they'd threatened to bomb. Can such characters be changed into peaceful, tolerant citizens? That's the question Lesley Stahl went asking.
These are the teenagers we're talking about. Teenagers who told us they got fed up after being pushed around by black, Hispanic, and Asian gangs. So along with more than 30 other white kids, they formed a gang of their own, the Fourth Reich Skinheads. With their shaved heads, swastikas, chains, and boots, Tim Traster said they felt tough and invincible.
If a group of black people or any minority looks at another group and sees a swastika, they're going to say, oh crap, let's not mess with them. So, it's the perfect thing for kids full of fear. They want other people to feel fearful of them because they don't want to be intimidated. And that was like us, we didn't want to be intimidated.
But they did more than just wear swastikas. They beat up black and Hispanic kids and passed out flyers saying a white revolution is the only solution. One of them wrote, "Die Jew Pig" on this synagogue, and several kids threw pipe bombs at the homes of people they didn't like. The Fourth Reich skinheads thought they had hit the big time when they met two men, Joe and Mike, who claimed to belong to a known neo-Nazi group, the Church of the Creator. The two adults told the skinheads that they could use this warehouse that was stocked with guns and a Nazi flag. But it was also stocked with tape recorders and a hidden camera. The kids had walked into an FBI sting.
How's everyone doing? Doing pretty good. All right.
In a series of meetings, the skinheads told the FBI undercover operators that they wanted to start a race war by assassinating a well-known African American. They picked as their target the Reverend Cecil Murray, head of the prominent First African Methodist Episcopal Church in Los Angeles. They planned to shoot him while he was conducting a service, then throw pipe bombs into the pews and spray the congregation with machine gun fire. The FBI warned Reverend Murray, and the church quietly added security.
We have enough sense to watch our backs, but we don't have to become overly concerned. It's God's house.
But they asked you not to tell anybody.
Oh, yes, and we told nobody.
If they ever did throw one of their pipe bombs, which they were known for, and you were, in fact, preaching, and there were people sitting in all these pews.
It could have been devastating.
Devastating Reverend Murray's church wasn't the only violent act the skinheads were planning. Assistant U.S. Attorney Mark Greenberg, who supervised the investigation, says they also targeted some rabbis.
They had a list of rabbis' home addresses that they were going to attack and send letter bombs to.
Before the skinheads could carry out their plans, the FBI moved in and arrested 3 of them. But the rest of the group was still out there, filled with hate.
It would only be a matter of time till I'd have to prosecute them as well. They had talked about acts of violence. They had willingly involved themselves in these discussions and came back for more discussions. Why not try and intervene? And if we can just get one of them to go away from violence, if just one less prosecution, it'd be worth the time.
So Mark Greenberg came up with the idea of trying to teach the skinheads how to be tolerant, and he called his program Operation Grow Hair.
I came up with the name just thinking about trying to add some humor to the whole aspect of it. Since they're supposed to be skinheads, I thought if we can grow hair, we can change them.
He wanted the skinheads to meet face-to-face with the targets of their hate, and Reverend Murray agreed to help. Now, why did you agree to sit down and talk to those very kids who were plotting against not only your church, but against you personally?
We cannot do violence to violence, insult to insult. Somebody has to break the cycle. Their agenda might have been to destroy us. Our agenda is to see if they can be redeemed.
So Reverend Murray and other ministers from his church met with 5 of the skinheads. The only kids who agreed to have their faces shown were this 19-year-old, whom everyone calls Turtle, and Tim Traster, who thinks blacks are getting special favors.
Well, you still subscribe to the basic philosophy of white power blacks are degenerate, separate from them, and if necessary, kill them.
There are many blacks who feel the same way, though, and I can show you many. Walk down to Poly High School, you will see many of them.
Are they?
That feel hate for me. I didn't walk around school and say, I'm from Fourth Reich Skins, I am a skinhead, white powers, I don't care about you because you're black. I never said that. I would walk down the hall and people would call me white bread or whitey, just when I'm walking down the hall.
When that happened, Tim said, he was afraid.
We're all afraid, but out of your fear, you cannot do certain things. You cannot kill, you cannot malign. You have to keep your little prejudice within your chest. Go on and hate black people if that's your shot, but you are not allowed to act on what you feel.
But the skinheads say that in their integrated middle-class neighborhood south of Los Angeles, they were constant targets for kids of other races.
There was a lot of name-calling that went on, and at school there were areas that were off-limits to white people.
Chris Fisher, the leader of the Fourth Reich skinheads, is serving 8 years in prison for making and using pipe bombs and for plotting to blow up the first AME church. He told us that when he was in high school, black gangs controlled the second floor of one school building.
I made the mistake of going upstairs in the 100 building, but luckily only name-calling went on, you know, white boy, cracker.
And what did you do?
I got angry. I didn't react physically, but, you know, inside I was angry.
And what about the anti-Semitism? Where did that come from?
I really started getting indoctrinated with anti-Semitism by reading literature. You know, the Jews are portrayed as the root of all of our problems. And with ignorance, it seems like a good argument.
Chris says his parents were shocked when they found out what he'd been up to. So were Tim's parents, Dee and Roy Traster.
These kids were a great group of kids when they were in my house. This was a non-drug taking, non-alcohol drinking. My son was smoking cigarettes then. He was being pressured to quit smoking cigarettes, live clean.
By the group.
By the group. And looking back now, that is a little, goes along sort of with some fascist ideas from the past almost. That purity, that purity.
The Trasters told us that they brought their son up to respect Jews.
I was raised by a Jewish uncle. I have very
well, wait,
fond
you were raised
memories.
by a Jewish uncle.
He was an uncle by marriage.
Your kid comes home one day, or the police tell you, however you learn, that your kid is in a group.
I said, thank God my uncle's dead.
The Trasters readily agreed to let Tim take part in Operation Grow Hair. The teenagers went on a tour of the Simon Wiesenthal Center's Holocaust exhibit, visited a prison, saw the movie Schindler's List, and talked to a group of rabbis and Holocaust survivors. But the most emotional event came at that meeting when the skinheads sat down with Reverend Murray and the other black ministers.
Everybody has hate in their heart, and that's what racism is broken down to. Everybody, if I were to ask anybody in this room if there was one thing that they hated, and everybody, you know, everybody would have something they hate.
What these kids hated was that blacks seemed to want special treatment.
Why is it that in America you want to be considered African American?
We are African American.
Okay, you're African American. Then why aren't we considered European American?
You are.
No, we're not. I'm sorry, I'm American. I am not European American. I don't care what you say. I'm American.
In that position as African.
The minister asked why the group hated him just because of the color of his skin.
No, see, that's ignorance playing in right there.
No.
I haven't showed you in any way that I dislike you, so you have no right to say anything like that.
I've heard, well, if you're dealing with the Fourth Reich.
Well, why don't you start judging people as individuals and not groups?
When you become a part of a group, you're part of that group and what they identify with.
We just didn't sit down one day and say, oh, let's call black guy a coon or Mexican guy a beaner. We didn't do that. Mm-hmm. We had all experienced some kind of prejudice towards us. Mm-hmm. So that planted hatred in our hearts, and we casted it out among other people.
One of the ministers asked if this session was changing their minds about Nazis and white supremacists.
If one tried to recruit me today, I would, I don't think I could, you know, because of my past involvement. I'm trying to straighten myself out.
I think it's just taught me to take everyone as individuals and not as groups.
We stand adjourned. Thank you.
At the end, the skinheads managed to give the black ministers hugs, albeit awkward ones. When Chris Fisher met with Reverend Murray, he told him he had had a complete change of heart, and he cried when Reverend Murray was forgiving.
When I was a racist, I think I got a false sense of self-esteem. You know, by looking down on other people, it made me feel important. And finally, for somebody else to tell me that I'm smart and important, it's kind of a good feeling.
The black minister came and told a bunch of skinheads who were talking about blowing up his church that he respected you?
Yes.
Why should we believe you? Why should we believe that you've had this enormous change of heart? I mean, why aren't you just saying this to get leniency, to get out earlier, to get sympathy?
That's the thing. I can't prove this to you. I can look you in the eye and say it, but there's really no way for me to prove it until I get out.
Did you apologize?
Yes.
You did publicly? What did you say?
I wrote a letter to Reverend Murray.
Saying?
That I'm sorry for any trouble that this has caused you, and I'm sorry.
Chris Fisher has had 10 months in prison to think about what he's done. As for the others, just how much they have really changed their racist views is not clear.
Do you want to live somewhere, and be honest with me, where everybody's white?
I think I'd get along. I think I'd get along a lot better, and I don't think there'd be as many problems.
Would you like to live where everybody is white?
Australia.
Here you're telling us that you've rid yourself of your racist views, but
No,
you both
see-
want to go live where everybody's white. My question is that before you'd gone through this counseling here, those were your views.
Except they were a lot harder. It'd be like, automatically if I saw a black person, I'd say, look at that nigger. Once I went through the program, though, I would not look at a black man or a Mexican guy and say, oh, look at that, you know, he's going to steal something. I wouldn't do that now, but I would have done that before.
You chose these kids because you feared they were going to hurt other people. Do you think they will hurt other people now?
Once again, I'm the optimist, but I don't think so.
Now, do you think these kids, in terms of the racism, have changed, genuinely changed?
Well, it's interesting because one of them used the term prejudice, which to my knowledge isn't really a term, but if you put prejudice between racism and prejudice, maybe that's where they're at.
You know what I saw? I saw a turtle with his head half-shaved. And I thought, halfway there.
Which is better than no way there.